beautiful people. My name is Emma.
And I'm MC.
And we are your hosts of the G-Forces podcast. So this upcoming weekend is the Hungarian Grand Prix. This is the race last year that Lando got second and shattered Max's trophy, if you remember. So we're going to do our normal Get Ready episodes. Who are you talking about?
So I feel like certain European countries, there are like 1,000 drivers that come from them, and unfortunately Hungary is not one of them. There's like one or two Hungarian drivers that are pretty big, or pretty big is a relative term, not very big. And so their careers weren't super extensive, so I figured we'd pick another team principal, since I think this makes team principal number 5 we've gone over. So this week we're going over Mercedes' Toto Wolff.
Awesome. And then I am going to go over so normally I do a historical race. We've been talking a lot about like the same kinds of people, so like a lot of the late 80s, early 90s drivers. So I decided to do some drivers that we actually know, but we did not, well, not us, we don't know them personally, but as fans we know, and we were not fans of the sport at this point in time, so it's not technically it wouldn't be like a vintage race per se, because it wasn't 20 plus years ago. I'm talking about the 2014 Hungarian Grand Prix.
If whoever's driving in 2014 heard you call it like a vintage race.
No, this isn't a vintage race. Between 20 to 40 years old is vintage, I'm pretty sure. So it's only 10 years old, but we've got some names in there that we do know, and this was during the Mercedes era, so I think it's actually quite fitting for your team principal pick of the week.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. And then we got some news going on at the very end, so yeah. All right, let's get into it.
Alright, so Mercedes was another team that actually had a pretty nice bio, which I always like, because sometimes on the internet, I don't know, you're just doing like internet research from articles and things like that, and sometimes you want the like primary source of the team just to like fact check. But Toto was born Toto Christian Wolff, and he was born in Vienna, Austria on January 12th, 1972. Honestly, there wasn't a ton on his childhood. It didn't really seem like it was super steeped in this, like, world of racing, like we've seen in other drivers or team principals past, where they're, like, at the age of 2, they were already driving, like, a single-seater. So, according to Mercedes' website, he got into, the racing world after watching a friend race at Nürburgring when he was 17. Toto had a short stint in the racing world, beginning as a racer in 1992 in the Austrian Formula Ford Championship. He would spend about 5-ish years racing like this. He would do the Austrian Formula Ford as well as, I believe, the German Formula Ford Championship. He did even score a win in his class during the 1994 Nürburgring 24 hours. So getting in that endurance drive. Later on in the mid-2000s, when he was kind of in his more business-savvy chapter of his life, he would go on to be 6th in the FIA GT World Championship in 2002, and then in 2006, he would show a top performance during the 24 Hours of Bahrain. Okay. So, kind of a little bit of sprinkling of racing. In the late 1990s, Toto pivoted fields in motorsport and took the time to focus on investments and the business front, which is kind of his bread and butter, obviously. I'm going to talk about his net worth at the end, and I want you to guess what it is.
Oh, I know what it is, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, we'll see if you're right. In the late 1990s, Toto pivoted, and he ended up doing a bit of education at the Vienna University of Economics and Business, which he then went on to start his own investment companies. According to the Mercedes bio, these early companies for Toto were super focused on tech, and Toto kind of felt that tech boom of the late 1990s. He benefited from that. The first big motorsport investment that everyone kind of mentioned for Toto was investing in HWA AG. This is a company that runs the DTM, or the German Touring Car Championship, the racing and development for Mercedes specifically, as well as their F3 engine program. I don't know if they still are, but it was at this time. So that was like the first kind of relationship of Mercedes. Additionally, around this time, Toto and former F1 champion, who we haven't spoken about really, Mika Hakkinen.
I love Mika.
Would start a racing drivers management company, and one of the names that like a bunch of websites mentioned of like who is on this roster, Valtteri.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So Toto then went on to invest in Williams' F1 team.
Well, yeah, because Toto's still a manager for several of the drivers on the grid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, anyways.
Toto invested in the Williams F1 team, which we know and love, in 2009. He would stay involved with the team, even becoming the executive director. I think Williams saw their last first place during this time.
From 2009 to when?
To 2012.
Okay.
I think their last first place was
They were still doing decently well in 2014. I think it was
Yeah.
like 2015 to now that they just haven't been doing well.
Yeah, I think there's like...
I think it was when Lance Stroll's dad invested in Williams.
I don't know. Anyways.
Oops.
In the beginning of 2013, Toto would leave Williams and move to Mercedes, becoming the manager partner of Mercedes' F1 team. Additionally, he was one of 3 shareholders in the company. Toto had a 30% stake, Niki Lauda had a 10% stake, and then the parent company, whichever parent investment, had a 60% stake. Toto was then shortly appointed as the head of Mercedes-Benz Motorsport, climbing that exec ladder.
Now CEO.
Wolff had shares with Williams and Mercedes for a handful of years, but slowly sold his shares off by about 2016. That was the last involvement.
I wonder if his shares were bought by Lawrence Stroll.
I'm not sure. I think the final... Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the years between now and then, under Toto's leadership, Mercedes has seen 8 Formula One Constructors' Championships, along with 7 Drivers' Championships with Lewis Hamilton. In 2020, it was confirmed that Toto had increased stake in the team, holding a 1/3 equal shareholding in the company. It was also confirmed that his contract was extended for another 3 years. At the end of last season, the 2023 season, Toto signed another 3-year extension with Mercedes, so we'll see him around for at least another 2 years.
I can't imagine a grid without him, honestly.
And then, according to Forbes, guess what Toto's net worth is?
Okay, so Toto is the second richest man on the grid in the paddock. Lawrence Stroll.
Oh.
So I think Toto's somewhere...
U.S. dollars.
I'm gonna go a little high on this one, I think. He's not a billionaire yet. Or is he a billionaire? I don't think he is. Is he? I was gonna guess like 700 million, like close.
According to Forbes, his net worth is 1.6 billion U.S. dollars. But also, you have to think about like how much investment.
Was he rich? Was he born rich also?
The only things that they said about his parents were that his mom was a physician, and then his dad, he lost his dad when he was really young to cancer.
Okay.
So, I'm not sure.
Because whenever people like are rich off of investments, I want to know how did they have the money to invest the first time though.
I'm curious if he had that like. This is a horrible comparison. If he had that, like, Forrest Gump luck with, like, the Apple investment, like, if he had just really good investments in the 90s.
I feel like it's probably like that, honestly.
Who knows? I'll have to ask him one day.
I would love...
Like, are you generational wealth, or...
I would be interested to hear from him, like, how he started the investments, like, how he decided that this was going to be the first investment, and, like, how he got the funds to do said first investment. Because I think that that's an important thing that a lot of people would probably want to know about.
Yeah.
Because then they can follow in his footsteps.
But yeah, I just wanted to go over high level. He's been at Mercedes for so long that, like, that's the thing.
I see him as Mercedes.
He's been there for over a decade, so, like, 10 years of a lot of these guys.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like a few of them have jumped around, but...
Yeah, there's a handful that have left, but I feel like there's a lot of Mercedes employees that have been there the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I am going to get into the 2014 Hungarian Grand Prix. So the reason why I wanted to talk about this race was because some of the races that we've had recently have, like, I don't remember what race it was because I can't think that far back. One of the races that we had this season, it was the one where it was like I think it was Austria. Yeah, where it was like sometimes wet tire, sometimes dry tire, sometimes wet, and like all that strategy, it makes or breaks your race. This race was very, very similar in that sense.
Okay.
So we've got drivers on the grid like Felipe Massa, Nico Rosberg, Daniel Ricciardo, Valtteri Bottas, all those people.
Daniel Ricciardo?
Yeah.
I forget that he's...
so old. He's not old.
There are just moments where I
Guess who were teammates at this point? On what team?
Fernando Alonso. I don't know. Who?
Fernando Alonso was teammates, I think, with, oh my gosh. Nordic European.
Oh my god. Who?
Iceman.
Nico Hulk?
No.
Kevin Magnussen?
No. I always laugh at his radios because he's always so blunt, like, just let me drive.
Oh!
Kimi Räikkönen! Oh my gosh.
God.
I feel horrible. I couldn't remember that. Anyways, I think they were both at Ferrari at the time. But the people I was, like, shocked, I didn't even realize that they were teammates at one point. Nico Hülkenberg and Checo were teammates on Force India together.
Wow. That's also crazy realizing, like, how... I think sometimes, especially as people who got into the sport because of Drive to Survive, like, I forget how long some of them have been on. And I kind of... It adds to my, like, anointing frustration for the younger guys. But I digress.
Well, and Jenson Button was still racing. And he was teammates on McLaren with Kevin Magnussen. And Kevin Magnussen had gotten podiums that season.
Crazy.
Oh, 100%. Okay, so let's talk about the actual race. So we get into the race weekend. The driver standings going into the race weekend. I'm just going to go over the top 5. Nico Rosberg for Mercedes at 190 points. Lewis Hamilton for Mercedes at 176 points, so only 14 points away. Daniel Ricciardo driving for Red Bull at 106 points. Fernando Alonso for Ferrari at 97. And Valtteri Bottas driving for Williams at 91 points. So Williams was in 5th place in the driver standing in 2014. What happened? Williams was even getting podiums during this season. Can't wait to see the day. Okay, qualifying. We see Rosberg get his 6th pole of the season. Sebastian Vettel qualified P2. Lewis Hamilton's car caught on fire during qualifying, so he didn't get to put a time down, so he started 22nd. Because there were 22 cars on the grid at this time.
Yeah.
And Lewis eventually actually started from the pit lane because of that. So the race actually starts. Lewis is in the pit lane. Everybody is on inters because the track had been wet from earlier rainstorms and thunderstorms. But it wasn't currently raining, but they still needed inters because the track was, like, soaking wet. So Rosberg leads into the first corner, but Bottas and Alonso actually pass Sebastian Vettel, like, right into that first corner, like, on that first lap, basically. Don't really know what was going on there. Lewis's brakes were cold because he didn't do the formation lap because he started from the pit lane, so off of turn 2, he actually spun out on that first lap. He rejoined still in 22nd place, naturally.
He did not move.
By lap 9, Rosberg has a pretty good lead, and Hamilton, like I said at the beginning, he was 22nd. This is lap 9. He's already in 13th. So he's just barreling down.
Jeez.
Then we have Marcus Ericsson, which some of you know that name. He is currently in IndyCar. He crashed and caused a safety car. And so all the drivers pitted for dry tires except for McLaren. So Jenson Button and Kevin Magnussen, they pit for inters. So another example of a rough McLaren decision that's not going to pay off again, unfortunately. The timing of the safety car meant that the top 4 actually missed the pit entrance, so they had to go and do an entire lap around the safety car before they could go into the pit, which we've seen in races this season. And if you get stuck behind the safety car, you're kind of shit out of luck.
Yeah.
Everybody else gets a free pit stop and you don't. And so because of that the top 4 were Rosberg, Bottas, Vettel, and Alonso. So they had to do the entire lap behind the safety car, and then they eventually got to pit. This really screwed them. So Rosberg started that at first and came out in 4th. Bottas really got screwed, started in 2nd, and that ended in 11th. So, yeah. Ricardo now actually benefited and was now leading the race. Which I personally have not seen Daniel Ricciardo lead a race in the seasons that we have watched, obviously. Yeah. Drive to Survive did start from when his last season with Red Bull, so you do get to see him win Monaco in the first season, which is pretty cool. And you get to see that iconic photo of him, like, jumping into the pool, like, belly flopping.
Apparently he has a statue of that in his
It's,
house
like, the most
Australia.
iconic photo of Monaco, I feel like.
But just, like, if I ever put a statue of myself in my house, like, I would hope you would just have me touch some grass.
I feel like if I were a celebrity, I'd be more likely to have photos of myself in my house.
Well, photos, like wedding photos or, like stuff like that.
Like a statue of myself.
But
Maybe was it gifted to him? That's my question. Maybe it was gifted. How can you throw it out?
Okay.
Okay. So then the safety car actually ended up staying out a little bit longer because Romain Grosjean, who you also know, the man that walked out of fire, also an IndyCar, he ended up crashing under the safety car conditions, which is so rough.
Woof.
Yeah. I don't know how that one happened, but I am so sorry to hear that for you, bud. We're only at lap 14 of like 70 laps of the race. So the race resumes, and Jenson Button passed Daniel Ricciardo because he had inters on, and Danny had gone for dry tires. Nico Rosberg is now 5th. He was overtaken by Jean-Eric Verne, which I don't know what team he was racing for. I should have written that down. Sorry. But now we're Lewis Hamilton. He overtook 4 cars in 1 lap to get 9th. I really actually want to go back to rewatch this race because it sounds insane. This is now when Jenson Button decides to pit for dry tires. So if you could hear, like I said before, Button had passed Ricciardo for the lead at lap 14. Lap 16, that's when Button pitted for dry tires, and he comes back. He started first, goes back at 16th. That's how much switching to inters instead of dry tires screwed him.
Oh my god.
Mm-hmm. Not the best decision. Lap 17, Hülkenberg retires after crashing with his teammate Checo.
Oh my god.
Lap 23, his teammate Checo retires. So both Force India cars are out for the first time this season. For the majority of the race, the next, 20 or so laps, it's just the same stuff going on, people passing, not much. I didn't want to continue writing the same things of, Rosberg passes so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it was just getting boring. Lap 47, we're going to jump to lap 47 from 23. Rosberg was as I said, Rosberg passes so-and-so. Rosberg was was a little bit over a second behind Lewis at this point. And Rosberg was on a 3-stop plan where Lewis was on a 2-stop plan. Okay. Team orders call into Lewis saying, let Nico pass because he has to pit one more time and you don't. Okay. And Lewis respond with, if he can overtake me, then he can overtake me. I'm not letting him pass. Which to be fair, he was more than a second behind him, so, Lewis would actually have to slow down his own race for it. But
and
like,
this is a stupid question. This is not DRS days.
yes, it is.
Oh, it is?
Yes. That's what it said online.
Okay.
And the internet is always true.
Okay.
So, but yeah, the reading the tensions of the radio messages from Mercedes is always a little awkward because it's like, ugh, yikes.
Yeah.
So, lap 54, Daniel Ricciardo goes in to pit for softs, and he comes out 4th place. Lap 56, Nico Rosberg does the same thing, comes out 7th place. Lap 62, we see Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton, and Ricciardo running super close. So by that, Alonso's in 1st, Hamilton's in 2nd, Ricciardo's in 3rd. They're only 0.4 seconds away from each other. So Hamilton's 0.4 behind Alonso, Ricciardo's 0.4 behind Hamilton. So basically right on top of each other. Rosberg was a solid 20 seconds behind, but closing the gap. And then somehow in laps 67 and 68, Ricciardo ends up passing Lewis, and then in 68 passing Alonso. Both of Lewis's and Fernando's tires were just dead. And so the people who actually had a 3-stop ended up being faster, from what I could tell, because they had fresher tires. So it really is just like a gamble sometimes. The results of the race ended up being Ricciardo winning, so it's one of his 8 Grand Prix wins. Fernando Alonso in 2nd, Lewis Hamilton in 3rd, and then for the last bit, Hamilton just defended from Rosberg and was like, "You're not getting past me. You're only 13 points ahead of me in the championship. Why would I let you pass me?" Really healthy.
Yeah.
So one of the things that came out in the news after this race was Niki Lauda, as we all know and love. He said that he actually agreed with Lewis for ignoring team orders, which really adds a little bit of spice to the conversation, I feel like.
I feel like having done the deep dive, or the high-level deep dive into
makes
Niki
sense.
Lauda, though, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Where he's
I
like,
think
show your
Niki
worth.
Lauda wouldn't have let Nico pass. So it shows when team orders can benefit and not benefit you, I think. Mm-hmm. So that is the 2014 Hungarian Grand Prix. We can only hope for something that can add a little bit more action. I think that we're going to have actually, I have not checked the weather for the weekend, to be honest.
I'm not really constantly checking the Hungarian weather on a regular
Usually
Tuesday.
there's someone posts on Instagram what the weather for the weekend's going to be. But if it's wet, I have a feeling we'll have a race like this where it's all about tire strategy. If it's dry,
who knows?
Who knows what could happen? Yeah, we're going to get into our final thoughts and just news going on in the motorsport world. There's been a few things that have happened in the motorsport world since the last time we had an episode. I still personally have not gotten over Lewis Hamilton winning the British Grand Prix. I think in the matter of 7 days, I got to watch Lewis Hamilton win the British Grand Prix and Spain win the Euro Cup, so I was having a phenomenal 7 days, to be honest. But...
Sorry, England.
I'm really not... Well, I'm sorry for the women in England after seeing that domestic violence statistic.
I feel like that comes out every year, like with any major international sport about England.
But it's always England.
Yeah.
It's not any other country. It's always England.
Let's work on that, England.
Yeah. Anyways, so some of the news that's come out is today Haas announced that they are going to continue with Ferrari power units until 2028. They just re-signed, not resigned, which they really need to... Why do those 2 words have to be so similar, if not the same? Just depends on where you pause and pronounce. Anyways, they have that until 2028. Who knows if they're going to switch to something else afterwards. Apparently Toyota is in talks, which would be interesting because at least as long as we've been fans, Toyota has not been a part of the F1 world. I think it might have been earlier on, like a while back.
I wonder, so it's till 2028, but I wonder if there's going to be any level of like a clause to get out of it with the new 2026 regulations.
Maybe.
So, that'll be interesting.
Audi joined forces with BP. So, as we all know, Audi is coming in not next year, but the year after in 2026, and they have joined forces with BP. So, BP will be their oil, I believe.
I would assume.
I think it's oil.
I go to BP to get gas.
Gas / oil thing.
Yeah,
Well,
it's oil.
Gas is different from oil, though.
No, I know that, but BP is an oil company.
It's a mixture of both.
Anyways.
Gas and oil. They'll probably provide both. And then this past weekend was a race for IndyCar. I believe it was in Iowa. And, oh boy, it was a rough crash. We did not watch the race because we were tired. But I saw snippets of the crash after it happened. Lucky to say that everyone is okay and has been released from the hospital, but I think as fans who very randomly watch IndyCar, and people who we did not really grow up watching motorsports, as we've said before, and so, for us, ovals have always kind of been a little confusing, in the sense that,
we don't understand them.
The appeal of it has not really, we haven't understood that yet. Yeah. We are going to go to the Nashville race.
Yeah, we have to watch an oval for a while.
So, yeah, we're going to be watching an oval actual race in real life, but I know it's full throttle the whole time, and so if you mess up once or you slip once, you can tumble and then cause 5 other cars to crash, which is basically what happened this past weekend. I think it was Stingray Rob who was in the worst shape, and he was the one in the hospital, but then later on that day his team posted that he was out of the hospital and had been released. There was a lot of damage to the cars.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah, I think it was the roughest car that crashed that we've watched as fans. Well, there's been actually, I feel like IndyCar has some rough crashes frequently.
IndyCar, NASCAR, they have some, because I think, like you said, they're full throttle, the speed that they're going at, I think also how packed they can get.
There's so many cars.
I mean, whereas, the street races of F1, it's quite different.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, we're glad to see that everybody is doing well and hope they can get back out there as soon as they're feeling well enough to do so. The last thing that I have is Racing News 365 posted it, but nobody else has fully announced it. But apparently the BBC correspondent or something had a Q&A before the beginning of this race weekend.
Is this the Adrian Newey thing?
No.
Oh.
You can mention the Adrian Newey thing, because I don't know what that is. Apparently, it's set to be announced before the beginning of this race weekend, so today or tomorrow, that Esteban Ocon has signed to be driving for Haas next year, leaving Kevin Magnussen without a seat. I don't know how I feel about that one, to be honest. I don't think I like it.
I think that, especially because of the age of a bunch of these drivers and the 2026 regulations, I think a lot of these are going to be one-year agreements. I think it's going to be interesting. I think
100%.
I will say there have been aspects at the beginning of the season, not recently, he's been a little bit of a terror. But at the beginning of the season, I felt like he really did step up a little bit as leader. He shined. I am nervous of who he's going to be as a mentor if he fills that role. I would hope so. I would hope he would fill it well.
I hope he does not advise Ollie to race his teammates.
Yeah, I also who knows who is also going to come up with Ollie. It might not be, who knows. But I feel I say that with all these things, because I'm I have my...
Well, I feel like you're thinking of it in a logistical, legal way of I don't want to be sued for bad-mouthing this person. I'm more thinking of it as I don't know this person. I'm just basing my vibe off of what I see.
Off of straight vibes.
Yeah, just off of straight vibes. And the vibes I'm getting are not going... I'm nervous about the vibes.
I think the relationship, knowing the persona that they show to the media, knowing the bubbliness of Ollie, and knowing the Esteban of Esteban, just who he is, it's going to be a very interesting balance. But I also think the current team principal, Io
Yeah,
is
he's great.
significantly smarter in the decisions that he's making for the team overall.
I mean, there's people that would have said that they were nervous that for Ali to go to Haas in the first place a couple of years ago, given how they treated Mick Schumacher, but I think that was a very different team than we see today.
Also, too, look at someone like Kevin Magnussen. Kevin Magnussen, yes, everyone says, like, Kevin Magnussen had kids and that's what calmed him down, but I do think he went to Haas and, like, he just kind of focused on himself. Obviously, he was a menace at a certain point of the season. But I wonder, too, if there's certain teams he's been on, there's been this precedent that where Haas is just like, we just want to do well.
Yeah,
you know?
100%. Yeah.
So.
What's the Adrian Newey thing?
I saw a rumor that, this is a complete rumor, that the reason why talks with Adrian Newey and Ferrari aren't going super well is because whatever sort of contractual, again, this is complete bullshit rumors. Well, I don't want to say bullshit, but it's I was scrolling through TikTok, and it said something about, like, whatever aspect of his contract he would gain, like, a little too much control, and the current team leaders weren't thrilled with that. But also, that's just, like, rumors. Because then the other thing is Jeremy Clarkson.
I know that he's looking for houses near the Aston Martin.
Yeah, he's not looking for houses in Italy.
The video of Jeremy Clarkson being like, I can give you the insider scoop, the exclusive.
Apparently he did it to multiple.
Why do I feel like a lot of the British, like, older reporters are just like, let me cause chaos. Yeah. I'm just talking out of my ass, basically.
I mean, I think you get to a certain age where you're like, and you're in a field for so long that you're like, I could say anything.
I think I would enjoy the drama of it all.
Yeah. Do you have anything else?
I don't think so. I don't think there's anything else that's really been happening. It's been a pretty chill, like, 2 weeks off, honestly.
I'm a little surprised. I mean, obviously, if the Esteban stuff comes to fruition, but I'm a little surprised that this past weekend there wasn't really anything announced.
I think they were all taken. This is, like, the last weekend off before chaos. I think people wanted silence for this weekend. Then we have races for the next 2 weekends, and then it's silly season. Too. Goodwood was this weekend. Others were at, like, Wimbledon or the Euro Cup final. Yeah. Pierre and Charles were at the Eras Tour with their girlfriends, which Charles just looked like he was there because it made his girlfriend happy and was there for a friendship bracelet, and that's it. But yeah, it was a very weirdly quiet weekend. I'm suspicious of it.
I kind of forgot about F1 for a second.
Yeah, I haven't been on our Instagram in, like, the last couple of days, and I felt bad because I was like, oh no, what's going on? Nothing's going on. We haven't missed anything, really. Yeah. So that's why the news is kind of dull. I wish it was more interesting, but it's about to become insane. So
watch it not.
We still don't know where Carlos is going.
Slow little announcement.
If it's like that, I'm gonna be so irritated. Just announce where you're going already, Carlos. Anyways, I think that's all for today.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye.